And today we are talking specifically about how small trades businesses should be leveraging AI and also just operations in general, because it is so easy for us to follow the shiny object and have shiny object syndrome, when at the end of the day, the question is our business even positioned to be incorporating new technology to begin with? And I am so thrilled to have Brian Hensley. You are an expert in tech, and you're actually working as a consultant for many trades businesses to not just improve and add AI, but also just to improve operations in general. And so I'm really grateful to have you on, my friend. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on, Brian. I know you've had deep experience in the technological side. You've worked for a tech company for many years doing robotic process automation, and you were doing AI before AI became famous. So I really love, when somebody has that depth of knowledge. It's effectively like the first people who got involved with the internet. We want to be talking to those folks. So yes, other people have caught up and have been doing a lot of deep dives over the last year or two, but you've been kind of knee deep in automated intelligence and artificial intelligence over the, how many years? About decade?
Well, I mean, it's so basically when I joined the Canton Group a couple of years back, we introduced RPA as a thing, a service that we were willing to provide to our customers. And what RPA basically is, it's not quite AI or ML, but we were tinkering with that as well. But really, what the RPA process is building bots, and then what those bots are able to do is very, it can make some level of decision making, tap into different software platforms, pull stuff out of emails and put it into Excel spreadsheets, and kind of do some of that automation where in the past you'd have somebody do data entry and do that type of thing. So it's leveraging those types of technologies to just kind of simplify your workload.
And a lot of those tasks are able to be done today in a similar manner, but perhaps using a different type of intelligence, or software, let's say. But I'm curious, you're doing a lot of consulting. You also grew up in the trades, so you have a background in the trades. You've worked in the IT, COO side of things, and now both worlds are kind of merging for the first time, really, in a while. Correct?
Correct. I actually grew up on a farm, was taught by my father how to do a lot of different things, everything from the plumbing to electrical to carpentry and so forth. And so going into my consulting area, what I've been doing is working with a couple different companies, and some of them were healthcare, and there was a CPA firm that I've been working with. I'm also working with a couple of construction companies and helping them, kind of just modernize their systems.
Nice. And you just said a really key word here, because it's really about modernization. Bringing your company into the 24th century or 21st century. And so I'd love for you to talk through, you worked with a particular company and 4x'd their revenue. And so that was over the course of 6 years. I mean, 4xing revenue is massive. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of modernizing businesses, specifically for the trades. I see a lot of companies that they're not online, not really using it. They actually might be using spreadsheets, but they're not really using sophisticated technology. And so what are some of the first questions or first steps that you would take to really audit a business?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, one of the big things you have to do is really look at how well organized you are and what your foundations are, what your security is like, what your data is like. There are a lot of companies out there that, they see IT or technology as a side thing. It's, if you're in the trades, you're in a number of different areas, IT is your help desk. There's some components of it that you need to leverage. What you don't realize is that every business out there now and in the future is going to be leveraging IT more and more and more. And now with AI happening, more companies are looking at, okay, well, how can we leverage it? But if your foundation isn't clean, if you don't have your information organized, if you aren't secure, if you don't have good data that you captured, AI is not going to help you. So it's kind of like these foundational elements that you always have to work really, really hard at to put those foundational pieces in place for stability. And then you can build on top of that. It's kind of like, you're not going to build a house on sand, because
Yeah.
the whole thing's going to come crashing down. So what you've got to make sure that you're doing is putting a lot of energy and time and investment in getting organized and ready for what's coming in the near future.
So good. And I'm curious, when you're talking about the foundation and also, the security level of things, are you talking about making sure that like literally the documents and files are secure, that you've got really good passwords?
I've been in organizations where they're not using something called SSO. Which
Really?
is basically, it's rampant. And a lot of organizations, they're still utilizing external hard drives to store data. They may or may not be doing backups. They have 14 different passwords for all the different systems that they're using to run their business. And these are companies that are millions of dollar businesses. They're not, little mom and pop, small mom and pop shops. They're companies that are $5, $10, $15, $20 or $20 million in revenue. And what they're not doing is putting in place some of those foundational elements that need to be put into place to allow the company to be secure. I've seen organizations that have never turned off accounts. So an employee leaves and 2 to 3 years later, the account is still there. They may have disabled the account, but the account is still in the system. In some cases, they aren't even disabling the account. No, they don't have good access policies. To make sure that as new employees are coming on, as they change from position to position, as they get promoted, as they leave the organization, that you're doing all the things you need to do to make sure everything's secure. And then some of the other pieces of this really is, you should be able to log into any computer inside of your business, inside of your network, using your credentials. You don't need to take your laptop or your desktop with you. And if you have a good solid foundation for your security, you have the ability to do what you need to do and have access control to what you need to have access control to. If you don't have those pieces, you can't leverage all these other technologies until those are in place. Might be getting a little in the weeds, but
this is exactly what I was hoping for, to be honest with you, because Brian, it's when people talk about have security and you're like, what does that mean? And so I like getting really, really specific about what exactly people should be looking out for. So if we were to effectively have a checklist, company passwords, that's a great place to start. And SSL, can you explain that? Because I know what that is from,
SSO?
No, the SSL.
Those are security certificates. No, what I'm talking about is SSO. So SSO is single sign-on. So whenever you go into,
they didn't even have SSL, but okay.
No.
Have SSL.
With SSO, an organization, you may be utilizing SaaSes. You might be using, Microsoft Office. You might be using Microsoft Word. You might be using 2 or 3 different business applications that are out on the web, and you're creating different accounts for all of those. And if you don't utilize something called SSO, which is single sign-on, and have that controlled from your business, and get access to those under one unique account, you have to remember all those accounts, those passwords, and why that's problematic. I mean, besides the fact that now I have to have all these different username and passwords to manage my business, the other issue here is that if somebody leaves, do you remember to go turn them off in every single different business application?
Right.
So if you're a company that has, let's just say that you're a company that sells, you're a dog walking company. You have an accounting system. You're using QuickBooks. Maybe you have your accountant that's up in the QuickBooks online. If you aren't using SSO to control that, what ends up happening if that accountant leaves? Do you remember to turn that account off for that accountant? Right. So now they've got access to your books forever until you realize you haven't turned them off. If everything is single sign-on from your business, and it's a very rather simple thing to set up as long as foundational elements are in place, when you disable that account, it disables it everywhere. And if you change the password, it changes it everywhere.
I love that. Okay. And is that the case? There would be a single sign-on for every application?
I mean, most SaaSes out there now support single sign-on. Very few, I can imagine, do not at this point. And then if you're utilizing Microsoft, which a lot of businesses are, or if you're using the Google Suite, the G Suite, they have built-in tools to allow you to turn that on as long as you have the foundational pieces put together. And you're utilizing, for example, Microsoft's solution is called Entrée ID. It's up in the cloud. That's what should be managing your domain and allowing you to do what you need to do so you can have something like that.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. So you said Amazon has some pretty solid services in order to do that. What other company? Sorry?
No, Microsoft
Microsoft.
does, and there's a couple other companies out there that provide that service. But I think most businesses are leveraging the Entree ID. So you just got to make sure that you've got to make sure you're putting all those foundational elements are in place. And it depends on the company. Some companies may already have they're already in the cloud. They're already using Entree ID. They already have SSO in place. Make sure the other security policies are in place as well. So
Mhm.
there's a whole investigation that I have done in the past into organizations to see if they're meeting all the different criteria they need to meet kind of just security obligations.
So good. And to your point about the foundation, I mean, if you're hacked, you've got nothing, you know?
Right.
So I really, really love it. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase of this, and then we will get into AI and how to build on the foundation. But I want to get to the foundation first, and then we'll move forward. Um, about data, for these small, let's say under 10 million, for these smaller sized companies that are still decent sized. I mean, that's a pretty good size. But for these businesses under, let's say 5 to 7 million and under, what are some of the biggest data questions that you've seen? And these are, frankly, they're simple businesses in so many ways. I loved your example of the dog walker. Like, the accountant example is real, Now, granted, when you're at 7 to 10 million or anything around that range, you do have probably multiple points of data coming in. But the question is, what do you do with it? And how can we even set it up so that we can get more data?
Well, you got to make sure that you're understanding what you're trying to capture, right?
Mhm.
You want to understand what information you're trying to get from that data. So are you trying to put together a marketing campaign? Are you focusing on certain customer segments? Are you looking at forecasting sales based off of any particular industry, silo, geolocation, whatever the situation might be? You want to capture everything from your sales data in a CRM. There's tools like HubSpot out there where you're holding a lot of your customer information, Salesforce, and some of the bigger organizations. But tracking your sales data, tracking your accounting information, tracking your customer list, looking at basically all the different components. Maybe your project management is something that you're focused on. If you're in construction, you want to take a look at your schedules. What are your costs? Are you controlling your costs? What's your inventory controls? All those different kind of pieces, and where are you storing that information, and how are you tracking it?
Yeah.
So it just depends on the business, but you really need to be pointed with what you're trying to set as a goal for the data, and then making sure that you understand what that goal is, and then making sure you're capturing the information you need to. A lot of organizations are still using documentation, Word docs. I mean, they're even doing paper documentation. I've still seen that out there. Are you capturing that digitally? Are you storing it somewhere? Is the storage of your documentation organized? Those are all pieces that come into play. And as you're thinking about leveraging technology, and whether it's a SaaS product, or whether you're trying to improve your processes, or whether you're going to leverage AI, if you don't have yourself organized and you don't have the right information available, then you can only leverage so much. A lot of organizations really need to take that step back and look at how they function as a business, understand what the pathway is for basically the client's journey from beginning to end, and
Yeah.
and basically making sure that as you're mapping that, you're capturing the information along the lines, not over engineering it, but
Mhm.
capturing what's critical. Yeah, that'll help set you up for doing better forecasting and sales planning, basically.
Good. I love that. And Brian, I like to think of each department, kind of each key stage of the customer journey, and the departments that are in each one. So tell me what you think about this. So the first, I think of it as kind of 5 key buckets, and you've got the call center. Marketing comes in and effectively pours the lead into the first bucket, which is the call center. Their job is to set the appointment. That is the sales department, and there's collaboration between the two of them. So then the call center, once they set the appointment, now it is the salesman's job. And then the third bucket is the proposal process. There's design, depending on what type of service you have or offer. But that proposal process can be pretty intense. Maybe you got engineers involved. Maybe it's just back of the house, but they are able to kind of put together this proposal and design. And then once you sell the job, then the fourth bucket is production, fulfillment. And really, I mean, you've got different pieces there. You've got the project manager, you've got sometimes the estimator is still involved at that time, but for the most part, it's production, project manager, et cetera. Then the fifth bucket is what happens to that customer on the other side. Do they turn into a referral source? Do they actually turn into a repeat customer? Do they actually sign on for your maintenance plan? So they are now having real strong lifetime value with the business. And so with each one of those 5 buckets, based on what you're saying, I think it's, okay, what is the data that I need to capture in every single one of these buckets? And I like thinking about it from that perspective, because then to your point, tracking by the customer journey, what do we need to know about that lead that comes in that the call center interacts with? How do we know that they're qualified? How do we know that we spent the right kind of money? Okay, now that it's the appointment, what are the actual data points that we need to track for the sales team? What kind of numbers then do we also need to track between the handoff of the buckets? You know, from the call center to the sales, what's the conversion there? And then from the appointment to the actual design and proposal, and then the actual sale. So add to that if you would.
Well, I mean, so those are all really good points. And every one of those pieces of information, where are you storing it? Where are you capturing that information? And so one of the challenges that you might be, to your point, let's say it's a call center, you have a call center software, and there's information that you're capturing in it. And then you move on to the sales cycle, and you're utilizing a CRM, but all these different systems may not be connected together. And so what ends up happening is you have to pull a little bit of that information from all of those different locations to be able to make any forecasting. And it doesn't allow you to look for the patterns, to basically see the journey from end to end, because all the data is separated itself because you're using different business systems. So that's one of the challenges a lot of businesses face. They're either not using business systems to capture this information. They might be just putting it in an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, or it may be sitting in some third-party system up in the cloud, which is great for just that department. But how do you see a trend? How do you see that path end to end? And that's where you see large organizations, enterprise organizations, do things called data lakes, where they're pooling that data from all these different locations, all these different platforms, and dropping it into one big, huge, basically data structure. And then you can run all kinds of reports against that information. You can see patterns. You can, identify opportunities. You can do forecasting, that type of thing. But most small companies haven't gotten there yet. They're still, really just focused on one process. And as we grow in technology, and as we leverage things like AI more and more, no matter the business, I mean, literally, no matter the business, you're going to need access to that data for AI to make smarter and better decisions. So a lot of these products that are out in the marketplace are now building in little AI components that are tie into them. If you're looking at an HRIS system that has recruiting functionality built into it, as people are applying for jobs, it's reading resumes. So you have that little AI component that ties into that. Some AI components that are searching maybe for better benefit opportunities. But at the end of the day, if those are helpful add-ons to these other tools that you use, and you need to be taking advantage of them so that you're more efficient. But as businesses continue to move forward over the next 3 to 5 years, you really need to start pulling this data into a singular location and making sure that you can make smart decisions based off of it.
Well, and what you said that really, really resonated with me, Brian, is that AI cannot really work to its fullest capability if it can't scrape everything. So it needs to have it all in one place in order for it to really, for you to be able to allow AI to leverage.
It's going to either be in one place, or you need to have it know where to look, but it's got to be organized. At the end of the day, it can be tapping into, those different applications that are up there to get the information that it needs, but it needs that information to be organized. And if you're not organized as a business, then, you're still going to be able to leverage AI, but you're not going to get the potential that you would if it was more structured.
So I'd love to come up with a scenario here. And if this doesn't fit with you, then just say, hey, that doesn't work. But for now, I'd love to play a little game here. So let's say I have a plumbing business. It's 5 years old, We've got around 3 million in revenue. I have been using Excel. I've been using Excel for estimating. I've been using it for even like PDFs and Word docs for proposal sending. I've got a spreadsheet with all of our customer data. Like that's where everything is living. Where and what would be the recommendation that you would take? Like what do they do?
Well, I mean, you want to map out your processes. So that's really going to be kind of critical. So there's two levels to this conversation. One would be make sure that you're leveraging what's already out there. There's plenty of tools out there. So if you're writing proposals, you're coming up with the design concepts. The tools that are out there that exist today, ChatGPT, Claude, and others, you can leverage them to help you come up with concepts. They can, and I'm using the more popular named ones, but they're ones very specifically for, let's just say landscape design. But the point being is that leverage those tools because they can work at a much faster rate than people can at this point. If you're putting together a proposal, leverage ChatGPT to help you write the proposal. Feed the information that you need into it or into Claude or any of those other systems. Figure out which one works best for you, or you might have 3 or 4 different ones depending upon the use of it, the case study. But figure out which tool that you're going to leverage and then take advantage of it. You can feed information into it, everything from the pictures that you've taken of a site, the challenges that you're facing, your material costs. Let's just say that you've gotten an understanding of what that needs to be, and you can leverage AI to kind of help you build the proposal, write the proposal, and figure out what your cost structure needs to be, as well as what revenue, what your invoices are going to be to the customers. So those are kind of part of it, and then the other I think opportunity here would be looking at understanding that the future of AI in the next 3 to 5 years, you need to relook at your processes holistically and figure out not just how to leverage AI with your existing processes, but kind of think from the ground up, building things off of AI. So an example of this might be your proposal process. Okay, I'm going to go and look at some opportunities here. I'm going to pull some RFPs that are out there, and then I'm going to write my proposal. Here's my template. Let me leverage the AI to help me fill in all the information inside of the template. And then once I've got that, I'll do some cleanup and I'm going to send it out. Well, that's the way that you might leverage it today. Tomorrow, it may do the ingestion of all those RFPs out there in the marketplace. It's going to tell you which one you have a higher likelihood of winning based off of parameters you fed into it. It's going to download that for you and help create the response to it, and as well as send it out if necessary.
Right.
So you stop looking at it as how you did things before, and you try to reimagine what that would look like in a different world and take advantage of it.
Good. I really, really like that. And frankly, using those tools is such a good first step. Like if you're not using any kind of AI tool, yesterday I sat on for 2 hours with some of my clients and we just created a bot on ChatGPT. That's all we did for 2 hours. And I gave them prompts and, it takes a little bit at the beginning to figure it out. And it takes a little bit at the beginning to really do the training because, and you know what, Brian, if you don't mind, I'm actually just going to literally pull up my screen and show, because I think that when we hear about ChatGPT, it's like, where do I even begin? And let's just do like a mini demo, because I think that we might as well just make this for people who have never done this before, for people who have never used ChatGPT. This is what we did yesterday. And obviously this is like very blown out. So let me do this. I guess you can't really see that, can you? That's not working. No. No. All right. Well, darn. So yeah, you can't even see that. That's so funny. All right. Sorry, y'all. It can't be actually useful for you in this call. You know what? Here's what I am going to do. Y'all, we'll do a separate conversation where we actually do this process where I share my screen and we actually go through how to just create a bot, because there is a difference between creating a bot versus a chat. What you saw, that search bar, most people will just type in the search bar. But what's really going to help you, to Brian's point of being able to like have it remember what you've done in the past, if you create an actual bot on ChatGPT, for example, it's going to store the conversations and remember the conversations, as opposed to having all these one-off, hey, here's another estimate, here's another project, here's another email that I need to send. Instead, you're feeding the same bot all of the information, and it's got all of that context so that it can move on to phase 2, to your point, Brian. What are your thoughts there in terms of bots versus conversations?
Well, I mean, again, I'm thinking about even agents. There's all kinds of things that are forthcoming. There's going to be, an agent really is more of a customized application that is going to leverage. It's going to do what you kind of trained it to do, and it's going to do activity. So I was talking about ingesting emails and doing something with that email, and then maybe sending out the email. The thing that I just talked about with the RFPs, you could write a couple agents or that all tie together and do all those individual things and take an action from end to end, to where you now really are doing more oversight. So if you're, thinking about every time you put a proposal together, how many hours are you spending doing proposal writing? I mean, I know I've written more than my share, and you'll spend days and days on these things, and you're double checking your work, and you're making sure your estimates are accurate. What's going to be coming is people are going to be, building agents for their business that are going to take the information, use their own modeling for how they bid on proposals, and then kick the stuff out, eliminating a lot of the overhead associated with the hours that you put into a lot of different activity. Even in a world of accounting, or if you're a customer service rep and you're taking phone calls in and you're capturing information into a business system so that you can go ahead and process an order, AI is going to be able to do all that. So you're just going to build these bots that are going to populate the information. The Canton Group's a good example of a company that does that. The company I used to work for. The RPA that they do is, you could literally have they'd get they would build a bot that might be taking, let's just say you've got a manufacturing organization that has customers that are calling in and saying, I want X product shipped to my warehouse. They'll be able to send them through fax still, they'll send them through phone calls, and they'll send them through email. You can have AI take all of that information, populate it into an ERP system, and process the order and send it on its way, where you don't have to have the people filling the information out, doing the data entry. But why that's valuable, it doesn't eliminate the jobs of the customer service reps. It allows them to spend more time upselling. So repurpose the people so that they're doing things where engaging, they're validating the information that's been, coming in, that's been put into the system, and then they're basically being told directly by the AI, hey, there's an opportunity here to upsell for this. Go call the customer and see if you can do that. So it's just going to change the way we work and how we see the jobs that we have.
So good. I really appreciate that perspective. And Brian, let's go to the data side of things. Let's go back to that example of the $3 million 5-year in business plumber who has everything in spreadsheets. If he wants to start being able to store data in a way that he could actually start being able to have an agent come in and kind of see what's going on, like the landscape of his business, what would you advise him to do?
Don't use Excel. There's a lot of business systems. So we talked about a centralized, like a data lake of sorts for all that data to be ported into. You don't have to have that. I mean, that's enterprise level stuff. That's great. And you can work toward that. But in essence, if you've got the right systems in place to hold your customer data, having an online system that you have the ability to get into, to be able to generate reports against, I mean, that's what's going to be helpful. The idea that people are still doing triplicate and they're filling out paper forms is mind-blowing in this day and age, but it's still being done. And so the more business systems that you can leverage, and there's a lot of them out there, you just subscribe to them, you capture the data there,
Mm.
You take advantage of proposal writing software. You take advantage of accounting software. You take advantage of the customer relationship management software that's out there, document management. SharePoint is a platform that a lot of businesses don't even know exists. When, hey, we sign up for Office and Word, so we sign up for the Microsoft suite for our business, and we've got, let's just say, 10 employees and everybody using the Microsoft platform. You don't realize that there's a document management solution that comes right along with that for free that will store all of your data. And not only store it, which is great, it stores the documents. It allows you to kind of tag the documents in numerous different ways. And it even has version control associated with the document. So every time you change the document, it actually has a snapshot of it so you can go back in time. And it's free. It plugs right into, it's just part of the suite that you buy when you buy Microsoft. It's taking advantage of the tools that a lot of small businesses that have been in this industry, whatever the industry is, they've been in it their entire lives. They
Right.
don't know that these bigger organizations are taking advantage of all this stuff. So it's really understanding what you've already paid for, taking advantage of it, removing duplication, and trying to eliminate just kind of the archaic ways of running a business, which is using Excel, Word, and paper.
So good. I really appreciate kind of breaking it down, because to be honest, it sounds like, where do I even start? So I like, honestly, it's like, okay, take the time if you are going to upgrade or switch servers. Let's say if you're going to start using a suite like Microsoft, take the time to really get to know the fullest extent, because I would imagine, I know Google, we use Google, and I know Google has a lot of nice trainings on the back end of how to really utilize its fullest extent. And it has, what does Microsoft have? It's, oh gosh, or maybe it's Google. One of them has a really nice dashboard that will show you the data and kind of aggregate it for you. And you can build like the visual dashboards of pipelines and showing literally like literally the workflow of the customer coming in, like the funnel of where they're breaking off. And then it includes the conversion numbers. I'm trying to remember what technology that was, but it was inside one of those platforms. Like, it's included in your service that you're already paying for.
I mean, there's so many tools out there that
So
people just
many.
don't realize they can take advantage of. There's a great company called Insight Automation that's down in Baltimore. Worked with them for years. Dustin Sitton, and he's very well respected. They are a Microsoft expert house. We've leveraged them. I've leveraged them for implementing Power BI, which is an extremely powerful business intelligence tool that
Yes.
Microsoft makes available. And you just have to tap into your back end, your data, and build whatever reports that you want. They have Dynamics, which is basically a very robust CRM platform that you can build additional. I mean, it's got accounting functionality, it's got CRM functionality. It's kind of a tool that you can customize and build a whole lot of different business processes around as well. So long story short is that there are a lot of different tools out there that you can take advantage of, and you have to understand how it's all going to tie together. So you look at this infrastructure, you look at your workflows, your processes, you make sure you have them documented. You look for opportunities, where can we automate as much as we can? And you start building that in. And then you look for those opportunities that, like, this is the way we've always done it. How can we completely throw it away? And, maybe engage with an organization that's going to build you an agent to take this complete thing off your plate so you don't have to do it anymore. I go back to the proposal thing, but, there are tools out there that they can come up with numerous different landscape designs. And you just take a picture of a backyard, you come up with a whole bunch of things instead of you having to draw that out. You program it. You need to know, where's the sun coming, how much shade is it getting, all those different components, but it'll come up with ideas for you. And then you can turn that into something you're preparing for the customer. What's going to change as we're doing more and more AI is, the amount of time, when you are bidding on projects, there's a cost that's associated with the bid, the coming up with the concepts, the sales process, the execution process, project management components, and making sure everything is staying on track. AI is going to simplify and in some case eliminate the need for a human to do a lot of that. So what you're going to find is that people are going to be paying more for the expertise and the holistic package as opposed to the hours that you put into it. If that makes sense.
It's funny, Brian, I think for so many people listening and who don't have much of a background in technology, it's overwhelming in so many ways. And so I like what you're saying in terms of like, start doing kind of that mini step into, okay, what's a suite? I mean, you use Microsoft and you've used it for multiple different businesses. And frankly, a number of the trades businesses I've worked with, they're using Microsoft as well. So guys, look at Microsoft if you're just using Excel. So that's kind of a good first step, and then see what kind of systems are included in that based on really what you need. And I think, Brian, I'd be curious to hear your perspective, kind of as we're wrapping up here, how much of these decisions around the data that they should be capturing in terms of, yes, the KPI, the actual data to capture, but then where is it being stored? How much of that is dependent on the goal and vision of the business in terms of where they want to take it? Do they want to sell? Do they want to scale, et cetera? How much of the data is dependent on that versus across the board, they always need to have this?
How much data is dependent upon what the goal is? I mean, you want to capture as much as you can capture throughout the process. You want to, what you don't want to do is over-engineer your processes for the purpose of capturing data. But if you business, as is becoming more and more apparent, data is power. The more that you have, the smarter your business decisions. So it doesn't matter if you're a small organization or if you're an enterprise level organization. I mean, let's to the example you used before. When you bid on a project, you're using past bids to make a decision. Right? You're looking at the fact that that particular project seems like the one I did last year. The cost on that, I bid on that number and I lost a few dollars. And so what I'm going to do is do some markup. I go get my most recent inventory pricing sheet and figure out how much is going to cost. You do your math and you send it in. At the end of the day, you need that past information to make smart decisions for the future, for you to forecast, for you to bid, for you to continue to grow. So that's no different. Even if you have it on a piece of paper and you look at that piece of paper, you're using that information to make smart business decisions for tomorrow.
Right.
So ultimately, it's making sure that you're capturing as much as you can. You store it in a very effective way. Try to stay away from, I'll just say, archaic systems that make it difficult to find the information. Leverage the tools that are out there. Leverage the SaaSes, the Microsoft solutions that come in a box, and you have all those other things. And basically, I don't have a simple answer for you. At the end of the day, it's capture the information and use it. Take advantage of it.
I really like what you just said there. It's all in a box. Like Microsoft has it all in a box. You don't have to go outside of that.
We're using Google, Google Meet, or whether you're using, like, there's a Teams product, Microsoft Teams, that comes right with it. So, if you have the Microsoft solution, Microsoft Suite, you can actually have Teams right on your phone. You can call each other through the Teams platform. You can join meetings through the Teams platform. You can chat through the Teams platform, and it can tie directly back into SharePoint, which is a document management solution. So when you upload a document that you're meeting with your customer, you upload the document through your phone, it goes right into your storage facility that's already in the cloud and already backed up. And you don't even realize all this stuff's free because you paid for Office. So that's what I mean by in the box. There's these products out there that you don't realize. I'm paying for all this other storage, and I've got this external server that's storing my information, and I've got backups, and it's like, why? Like that's that's gone away. That's from 2012, 2015. This is the way you want to do it now.
So good. And there's a question here that I want to ask you specifically around your predictions for AI moving forward. But before we get there, one last note for those who are looking to consider. So a few things. One, do it during a quiet season. Winter's usually quiet. Whether you're in waterproofing and you know that once the ground thaws, that's when you have all the water issues because of the frozen ground. But during the freeze, it's quieter. There's just not as much work you can do. And so, especially for landscaping businesses, sometimes they'll switch over and do snow plowing. But for these businesses that are hit and impacted by the seasons changing, that's a great time to really focus on making this transition. And then also, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say it's inexpensive. I mean, the tools that are out there are not overly expensive. Go in and play with them and learn how to use them. That's how we're all doing it. And let me throw this out there. I went to an AI conference over the summer, and what I was shocked to hear was just how many businesses are just starting to figure it out. So really, we're in an infancy stage. Yes, there's these companies that are completely run on AI, and there's a lot of organizations out there that are they're really accelerated with the approach to community. But the majority, and I mean 90+% of us we're just figuring it out. We're just getting started. It's like 1996, 1997 with the internet.
Yes. And how encouraging, you're not so far behind. We're all getting started, but get started now.
Because if you don't, 3 to 5 years from now, that won't be the story anymore. And
exactly.
I mean, it was said in this conference that if you're not leveraging AI within 3 to 5 years, that you're not going to be in business because your competitors will be. So that's really, and it doesn't matter what size business you are, you've got to be figuring out how to leverage it. It's not just, let me sign up for a ChatGPT account and tinker around or Claude or what have you. It's looking at the products that are out there that you're using for your industry and look at what they're taking advantage of. Look at what products, like the product that you might be using for your estimating, probably has an AI component already built in.
Right.
I set up a website for someone recently, and I mean, 10 years ago, you'd charge $20,000, $30,000 for a website, be hours of coding. You'd have a graphic designer. You do all of the stuff to build the site up. And now I went into an AI component, said, this is what I want. I literally had the thing up and running within a day. What would have taken me months before was done in a day because AI built it for me.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. What a good perspective. And I've got 2 questions here. Bharat says, what's your thought on building your own LLM based on another model, but keep documents safe, like for a law firm, which would also need to develop its own learning based on the firm's documents?
Oh, I mean, that's a whole conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, is the idea that you're going to be building your own LLM through continual connections that you're making? Are you going to be pulling? But let me get his information so that I can talk with him directly. I think that would be better.
All right. If you would like to talk to him directly, go ahead and put your information here in the chat. I'm going to go to the next question, which is, what is your prediction for what year AI will be at its peak?
I don't think it will be at its peak. It's going to continue to accelerate. It's so I was at a conference, or I'm sorry, I was at a business dinner yesterday evening. It was kind of like a get together with different business owners, and the entire conversation that everybody was having was very specifically around how AI is going to impact businesses.
Yeah.
And what ultimately they're going to be doing. And there was everybody. There was a psychologist there. There was there was somebody that's focusing on accounting, HR, all the different areas and industries, right? And everybody is figuring out, what this is going to do for their business. They're all business owners. They're all tinkering around with it. They're all looking at how to leverage it, and they're trying to figure out how to leverage it with value. What is going to be coming in the near future is just going to keep accelerating. Businesses are going to be leveraging it more and more. They've got to look at, again, the data in the background. They're going to look at their processes. They're going to map what they need to do there and get ready for what's coming. But it's going to continue to scale. I think the big concern is what the impact is going to have on a lot of people coming out of college. Mm-hmm. The impact is going to be what it's doing for a lot of individuals' jobs. I talked a little about a customer service rep. So if they're not taking the calls in and taking the orders in and entering into the system, what do they do? So
Yeah.
jobs are going to change, but it's just going to continue to accelerate. I don't think there's going to be a peak. To answer the question directly, I think it's just going to continue to accelerate, and we're going to have a real shift in humanity, to put it bluntly.
So
You're
good.
gonna see AI. You see the robotics that are happening. AI is just going to be plugged into the robotics at some point. It's just going to get more and more powerful, and it's accelerating at such a rate that 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, it's going to be untouchable.
Good. Brian, if you don't mind, one last question. Drew Young says, I have had tremendous success year to date taking guardrails off AI for financial analytics, but he says he's done well. It is a separate, discussion, but what risks do you see in that regard?
Trusting the AI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to put it bluntly, it's not perfect at this point, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that you're double checking the work. You've got to make sure that you're not just making business decisions off of what it's making recommendations to. You're looking for the hallucinations that it may have identified that are embedded within its the forecasting and predictions. So it's making sure that you've got levels of controls, on it, I think.
I know that we got technical here at the end. For those of you who joined, there's some real good action steps for us, for all of us, regardless of where we are in terms of technical expertise. Learn more, play with it, and play with whatever level you're in and you're at. For example, to Brian's point about building a business, building a website. Playing with the Lovable app is a really, really good app to get familiar with. That's so depending on where you are with familiarity. If you have all your stuff in spreadsheets, figure out Microsoft. Get your foundation secure with security and data. And then with AI, it's okay. Let's start just playing with the tools. And the tools can be simple: Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, choose one and just kind of start playing with it. Get familiar. I'll go ahead and have a conversation on Monday where I actually record a video where I'm showing, just the way that I've built bots in the past, just really simple, nothing fancy. But y'all, thank you so much, Brian, for joining. This has been super helpful. And it's a very different discussion than we normally have, on the shows. We talk about different cultivation of intelligences, intellectual intelligence, artificial intelligence, and this was like technological intelligence, which was cool on the data and security side. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
How can people learn more about you?
You can come to my website, which is C-Suite
Perfect.
I've got about 25 years in this area, in the IT, COO, CIO field, and the AI component of this. I mean, we kind of pivoted toward that, but for many, many years, what I have done is gone into organizations, identified ways for them to improve the way they function as an organization, improve the processes, improve security, leverage technology. The AI stuff is just icing on the cake at this point. It's just stuff that we, like so many others, are just really wrapping our heads around and trying to learn as quickly as possible.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time as we dive deeper into all things trades, business, and marketing. So thank you so much for joining. I'll talk to you soon.